Dear Veristructor, Jess and I have become interested lately in the topic of supernormal stimuli. Exaggerating a particular part of reality such that human beings or other living beings choose it over the real thing. The reason why this is so interesting is because this feels like most of what happens as a human today. Most of what you engage in is precisely that. It is a super normal stimulus. What is the process by which living beings choose anything at all? And I think the reason why we might choose a supernormal stimulus as opposed to a normal stimulus or a natural stimulus is precisely because it indicates a clear break, quote unquote, break in the pattern of reality. That's the only way we recognize patterns at all, the way we recognize anything at all as being separate from the continuity and the unity of reality and life is by seeing a distinct element. There's a element of something which makes it distinct from everything around it. The better you get at observing, the more you can see breaks in reality. And of course, when I mean break, I don't mean really a break. It's still a part of the frequency of reality. It's merely a harmonic. It's merely the illusion of a break. To some degree, you could even say it's a psychological break as opposed to a real one. And we know this very well with supernormal stimulus as it is clinically, scientifically defined. But in the way that I define it, in that we live in a hyper reality, so that's another term that is often used to describe how we live in an entire reality composed of supernormal stimuli. And that seems to make sense to me. We got so used to the idea that the breaks were reality itself. It's the beginning of the story, right? But since time is not circular, but it is unified, because time is unified, when you create a beginning of a story, it creates the end of the story too. People are not trying to destroy themselves on purpose. They're not trying to destroy others on purpose. And at an early age, we start embracing the idea that this is how you engage with reality, is by breaking it up. You get a high out of, you get a sense of euphoria from picking apart the frequency of reality instead of flowing with it. That's why sometimes I call it a river. Instead of flowing along with it, floating with it, we have this sense that we need to pick it apart. Now, once again, like I said, that's the only way our brain can define, to some degree, any patterns at all. At some point, you have to unlearn that thinking. As your activities seem to blend into one another, where yes, there's a rhythm and there's a change over time. It's so slow and gradual, and things meld so well into each other that you can't necessarily say this activity started when I got in the car and drove here, or when I got on a bike and biked here, or I walked. Your activity continues along with you, whatever you're doing. That is the frequency of reality. That's when you're tapping into that. And it's not just time, it's space as well. It's everything. It's visuals, But once again, that's why it's so important to tell this story, that people want to do that. And yes, all of us are going to choose at some point to pick apart reality and try and, tell a story about it. Instead of letting it be what it is, we're going to want to tell a story at a very young age. But people don't do that willingly. And there's a high that you get out of it. And certainly we can point the finger at stuff like pornography or junk food and be like, that's definitely bad. But can we point the finger at, say, absolute time? Can we point the finger at construction as a whole? All forms of construction. Can we point the finger at these other things? And the answer is it's harder to do that. And the only reason why is because the addiction is so baked into human experience that we think it transcends culture. And that's why I love the term supernormal, because it doesn't tell you like, hey, this is supernatural or this is super just by itself. It's supernormal. It's you took something that shouldn't be normal and it feels normal, but it's actually quite powerful and addictive and can take you in a particular direction. Supernormal stimuli are not things that we just happen upon every now and again. They're not rare. They are all the time and create a hyper-reality at a very early age. And that's why I am very much of the opinion that people are not actively trying to destroy themselves and not actively trying to destroy others, but because of their construction of reality, which is a hyper-reality, not reality itself, and they're telling themselves stories that are supernormal stimuli stories. That flat line that we think everything is built on is literally a disruption in the frequency of reality, not the frequency of reality itself. And it is an illusion. So ultimately you have to break the being into such small sections, such small stories, in order to see them as flat and stable, the kind of stability and flatness that we're used to, which is why things fall apart all the time on us, because they're not built on true stability. They're built on a false, supernormal stability. You are a deep fountain of unique identity, Veristructor. Have a lovely week.